In this game, we're going to see attack, cool defense, counter-attack, counter-attack. It's really entertaining. It's fascinating, really instructive. And what a matchup. This is from the FIDE World Rapid Team Championship. Playing white, Arjun Erigaisi, number 4 in the world, 21 years old. What a rising star. Of course, from India. And he's facing the boss, Viswanathan Anand, 5-time former world champion and 55 years old, and really the mentor of so many of these rising stars from India. So yeah, what a matchup. Now Vishy doesn't play that much anymore. He's got into chess politics and chess coaching, mentoring many players. He's deputy president of FIDE. So let's see. Really interesting. Erigaisi, the man in form. How could Vishy do against him? So, solid start from both players. And Erigaisi plays this very pragmatic move. So, unpretentious development. It's the so-called Zuckertort system, where the bishops develop on these diagonals. The bishop on d3 pointing down to h7. We know how dangerous that can be. Vishy countering in the middle. And the bishop comes to b2. So this really, these bishops, that's the hallmark of the so-called Zuckertort system. And goes back to Johannes Zuckertort way back into the 19th century. And it's been fairly popular ever since. Now, Vishy comes up with an interesting idea. So he exchanges on d4. And instead of going for the standard b6 and bishop b7, putting the bishop on the long diagonal, first of all, he plays knight b4, attacking the bishop. Now, you've got to preserve that bishop. Very important attacking piece. And then Vishy goes for b6. So his idea is quite subtle. He would like the knight to be kicked back. The bishop returns to this diagonal. But in this case, after a3, you can see that b3 square is just weakened a little bit. And that knight might come to a5, looking at those two squares. Very interesting idea. So Erigaisi declines to push the knight back and plays knight c3. Bishop b7, the bishop comes to the long diagonal, very important. Rook c1, rook comes out into an important position on the c file where there's tension, and Vishy decides to open up the long diagonal for the bishop. And rook c8. So there's potential pressure on that pawn on c4. Knight e5. So classical play from Erigaisi. He's able to put his knight on the outpost, and that can be a very strong attacking piece. Well, Vishy understands what's what in these kind of positions and thinks, right, can't live with that knight here, I'm going to exchange it off. If your opponent has a strong attacking piece, exchange it off. And Arjun decides to exchange. He could have dropped back the knight, but okay, he chops it off. And I think, in some ways that's quite a success for black, because the rooks are now connected. Perhaps rook is going to come to d8. There could be a little bit more pressure here. But let's see Erigaisi's idea. d5. So this is the classic break in this kind of position. Opening up the bishop on the long diagonal. So Erigaisi is arguing that, well, that knight has gone from f6. So perhaps that gives me more of a chance to attack on the king side. Very interesting stuff. What about just taking that pawn? Well, Vishy didn't do this. The knight would be pushed back. And then knight takes d5. So white is not losing a pawn. And Vishy, after the game, thought that, after these exchanges, it's probably okay for black with his knight bouncing back into the middle. But he said, well, white has the two bishops and one never knows about this kind of position. So he played very coolly, actually. rook d8, simply bringing another piece into the middle. I mean, black's pieces are beautifully coordinated. I mean, that's really the hallmark of many of Vishy's games, where he coordinates his pieces so well. So just a great classical player. And that increases the pressure on d5, and one day he might actually take that. a3. Erigaisi pushes the knight back, has to go to a6, and then knight e4. So typical Erigaisi, you know, he's such an exciting player because he just has this forward gear. You know, you don't need to provoke him into attacking. He's there, he's going to create something. And you can see the knight on a very dangerous square, hitting these squares, but of course, crucially, opening up the long diagonal for the bishop. And this is tricky. So, you know, if I'm a black, of course, I'd be thinking about taking the pawn on d5. But queen d4 starts to attack here. I want to give you a little idea of the possibilities that white has. So after bishop f8, knight f6, that has to be taken. Now, if queen f6, threatening mate, then black breaks the communication and black as a piece up should be winning. But if white plays rook c3, that starts to get more problematic, swinging the rook across. Now, it's actually still okay for black, but in a blitz game, in a rapid play game, I'm getting confused. Very hard to calculate these kind of variations when you have so little time. The time control, 15 minutes plus 10 seconds per move. So Vishy, you know, he's using his judgment. And this is great judgment. Instead of getting involved in these kind of complications, taking the pawn, which could easily go wrong, he decides, okay, I need to bring this knight back into play. I want to exchange off my opponent's attacking pieces. Knight c5. Very sound. Erigaisi keeps going forward. Queen d4. Threatening mate on g7. Supported by that beautiful bishop on b2. And bishop f8 really does lose now because of knight f6, forking king and queen. Takes. And queen h8 mate coming. So after queen d4, black has to block the queen with f6, but this creates sort of weaknesses here. King's a little bit more exposed, so it's tricky. Erigaisi exchanged on c5. So Vishy has achieved something there. He has managed to get rid of white's centralized knight for that knight that was at the edge of the board. And the bishop has come to a good square. But Erigaisi is still attacking. Threat, bishop takes f6, not to mention taking on e6. However, f5, good move. So these pieces attack g7, but the queen is defending, and the pawn threatens the queen, and then it'll be Vishy's turn finally to take on d5. But Erigaisi plays pawn takes pawn. It's still really tricky. If pawn takes queen, and of course there's a skewer there. But Vishy played so coolly here. He just nudged the queen to the side, so it's still protecting g7. And if, well, okay, the queen is attacked. If queen g3, rook d2, counterattack, hitting both bishops. So Erigaisi played queen takes f5. So at the moment he's 2 pawns up. However, rook d2, this counter strike. And some nice tactics here. What happens on rook c2? I mean, this seems like it saves white. However, okay, I think it's time for a think and drink moment. Black to play. What would you do next? Black to play. This didn't happen, by the way. Cheers. Black wins with rook f8. The queen has to keep hold of the rook. If it moves away, rook takes rook. So what about, well, it's a problem. But queen takes, king takes, rook takes d2. Aha! White has 2 rooks for the queen. But no. Queen g5 threatens mate on g2. As well as the rook, and black wins. The boot is on the other foot. It's interesting, you know, both players using their fantastic bishops. Bishop on the long diagonal. So Erigaisi played bishop d3. It's not over yet. Threatening check and then mate next move. So g6, that keeps things alive. Threatens the queen, and watch out, these bishops are still under fire. Now, Erigaisi should exchange queens at this point. And then drop the bishop back. But, I mean, black has very good compensation for the pawn because these bishops are excellent. And, you know, white is tied down here. So good compensation for black, but certainly not over. But instead, Erigaisi thought he was doing very, very well, returning to the long diagonal with the queen. And at this point, Vishy had to have a little think. But he took on b2 and counterattacked with queen g5. It's his turn to threaten mate. And the problem for Erigaisi is that he can't block with f3 because that bishop is on the same line as the king. It's against the rules. Vishy said he didn't actually realise he was winning until this was on the board. He just thought, oh yeah, this is playable. This is what I have to do. But now he realised he's winning. So only one decent way to prevent mate, g3, and simply queen g4, threatening to bring the queen to either f3 or h3. There's no defence. Queen f6 played, with some counter-attacking threats down here, but rook f8. Vishy had this all worked out. If the queen drops back, then queen f3 wins in the usual manner. So the game went e7, rook takes queen. Erigaisi got a new queen, but actually it changes nothing. Queen dropped back. And then bishop f3 was the winning move. Here, Erigaisi resigned. So if queen d2, simply queen h3 and mate on g2. Superb counterattack from Anand. If we go back to this, let's just a few critical moments in the game. I love the way that Vishy just wasn't distracted by taking this pawn, knight c5. Just very sound, incredibly calm. He didn't panic when Erigaisi started attacking. And then roundabout here, well, he had to work things out very carefully. But again, very cool defense and had absolutely everything under control here. So there we go. The 55-year-old Viswanathan Anand can still play a decent game of chess and teach the youngsters a thing or two as well. Great stuff. Really enjoyed that game. Hope you enjoyed that. More coming on the channel soon. And if you want to check out some of the rewards, do check out patreon.com/PowerPlayChess and support the channel and enjoy more videos and live broadcast exclusively for patrons.